My name is Melinda Escobar. I'm an associate with Civitas Strategies. And we're going to be talking about infant and toddler care today. I do want to let you know that I do have my colleague, Vanessa Luman. She's here as well. She's going to be helping me with support. If you have any questions, hold on to them towards the end, and then we'll kind of do a Q&A response at the end. We just want to make sure everybody gets the information, and then we can go from there. But I am super happy to have you guys here with us today. I do have to read our disclaimer that this project is supported by the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as part of a financial assistance award totaling $5,378,809 with 100% funded by ACF and HHS. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. Publication and distribution of this information are not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information and recording of this content, including the use of AI, are expressly prohibited. Only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. Okay, got that out of the way, right? So here's what we're covering today. Okay, we're going to start with the opportunity. Because the demand for infant and toddler care is super real, and family child care providers are uniquely positioned to meet it. Then we'll take on an honest look at the challenges, and we'll talk through what it actually looks like to address each one. And then we'll close today by introducing some micro learning tracks on this topic, so you can know exactly what's available if you want to deep. We'll hold 15 minutes at the end for questions, so you can drop those in the chat as we go. Hold on to them, and then we'll go through that as we end. Okay. Just a little bit about who we are. Civitas Strategies works along childcare businesses across the country, including right here in Texas. We've supported more than 1.2 billion in combined business impact for providers, and everything we do is built around practical, real-world guidance. We're not just doing concepts here. So you're in good hands. Okay, here we go. Before we get into the opportunity, let's make sure that we're working from the same definition. When we talk about infant and toddler care, we mean care for children from birth through 35 months, okay? Basically, before a child turns 3. So that's the age group that we're focused on today. This is also, not coincidentally, the hardest age group for families to find care for. There's a gap between how many families need care for a child under 2 and how many slots actually exist is wider than any other age. And so here's the part that might surprise you. Most of the families, they're not even waiting until the baby arrives to start looking, right? And you know this. Some parents are expecting, and they're already calling you for a spot, right? So they start searching during pregnancy, sometimes in the second trimester, and are still on the wait list even after the child is born. So this is not a small inconvenience for those families. It can become a real crisis, and it is a real opening for providers who are ready to serve them. Okay. So let's connect the demand picture to your business specifically. Infant and toddler care tends to come with higher tuition rates, which reflects both the cost of serving the age group and the premium families are willing to pay for quality care they trust. But beyond the rate, there's a retention factor that doesn't get talked about enough. Families who enroll in their child or enroll their child in an infant will stay often for a longer time, for years. So that's enrollment stability. Okay, that preschool care, age care, it doesn't always offer that, because you start them at 3, and within a couple of years or even a year, and even months, it could be that they can start going to big school, right? Public school. So because a lot of a lot of school districts are taking children starting at 3, right? So that takes away those opportunities. So you fill one spot and potentially serve that family all the way through kindergarten because they would rather, they already have the care, they already know that, what to expect. So a lot of times they'll choose that even over sometimes some free programs. Okay, so that is a very different revenue picture than constantly backfiling, backfilling as older children age out. So you have to constantly be filling those spots because the children are moving out. Okay, so here's something I want you to really take in, that you're not starting from behind. Okay, when a child care center decides to add infant care, they're often looking at a dedicated room, a major facility renovation. They're going to have specific staffing minimums that have to be in place before even a single child enrolls. And it's a whole process, long licensing process on top of all of that. With you as family child care providers, it doesn't work that way. Your home base setting gives you flexibility that centers just don't have. Compliance pathways are more straightforward. Startup costs are more modest. And here's a piece that often surprises providers. Many families with very young children actively prefer family childcare settings, right? They want small, they want consistent, they want someone that will know their baby's cues. And that's you, right? That's going to be you. So, if you're considering adding infants and toddler care to your services, here's some things that, to consider. So we have some questions to ask yourself, so this is where you want to go. Are families having a hard time in your community to find the care for smaller children, for younger children? Okay. Um, are you thinking about the long term? Do you feel like you are in a place to stay with these children, right? If you only care for older children, right now, you have to think about how you're going to adjust to caring for the younger children, right? Because there's some differences, right? Um, I was just individual coaching somebody early this morning on this very topic, and we were talking about the difference because she's looking to go into infinite toddlers. So we looked at, what the difference is in furniture, time. You put a baby down, and or an infant, they're usually there when you return. But if you get into a 2-year-old who are curious, right? We all know that they're going to get into everything. So that's a different way of looking at things, right? You know, um, you have to like chase them around, right? They call it the terrible twos, but it's not terrible. It's terrific. Okay, it's terrific twos. Okay, 3-year-olds, you can sit down and do activities with them, and so there's a difference in working with the younger children. Okay. And you have to ask yourself, can you see yourself doing that? Um, Not just that, but finally, just with everything else that you do, every change that you make in your childcare, you have to make childcare, changes in your policies and procedures. So if you need to update them, or you have to make sure that that you maintain compliance. So you have to ask yourself, those are some big things that you're going to have to take care of before you even um, uh, take infants and toddlers on. Okay. So are you ready to update those policies, your space, and even your daily routines? Okay, so here are 3 things that we hear most from providers thinking about this move. We're going to spend a few minutes on each one, not to talk you out of it, but to make sure you go in with a clear picture. Okay, we definitely know there's a need, so we don't want you not to like, no, I don't know about all this. Let's start with the financial side. Okay. Okay, the financial side is where most providers have the most questions. And that makes sense because infant and toddler care has a different cost structure than serving older children. Okay, when you serve fewer children at a time, your revenue rides on the smaller number of enrollments. That means that every rate you set has to be right, not just competitive, but it has to build around what it actually costs you to provide that care. Okay, so there's 2 categories of costs to plan for. One-time setup cost before your first infant enrolls, and then an ongoing monthly cost that comes with serving the age group. Okay. So both need to be in your budget before you set a rate. Okay. How much is it going to cost you to take this child on, right, for each individual child? And then how much is it going to cost every month as you go through? Like, what is your monthly cost for that child? Okay. So those are the things you have to consider when setting your rates. The bottom line here is the stronger your business is going in, the smoother that transition is going to be. This is a growth move, and so it works best when your foundation is already solid. Okay? And again, if you have any questions, hold on to them. We'll get to them at the end. Okay? The path forward on the financial side is really about sequencing. Okay? You want to start with costs. Okay? What will it actually cost to serve infant and toddlers in your program? Then you build those costs into a budget, right? Once you do that, then you figure out what rate you need to charge to be sustainable. Okay. I know as childcare providers, we have big hearts. We're thinking, oh, the babies, families need us. But you have to put on your business owner hat. Okay. You have to think about it from the business perspective. And the longevity of your business. You want to stay in business, so then you want to make sure that everything you do is keeps your business sustainable. When you do that, you're going to look at the market to see how your rates compare. Okay, and then, as this is the step most people skip, you build a cash flow projection that maps out your month by month what your income and expenses look like through the transition. Okay. Now, if you've ever coached with me, you know I'm big, 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 big on budget and cash flow. Okay? This is where it starts. You have to make sure that you have a monthly budget going in. That means with the money that you are receiving, okay, will your expenses be covered every month? Okay? Now, a cash flow is taking that budget, and if you do everything, the way it should, how much is it going to be for the next month and the following month and the following month? So if you keep everything the same, what will it look like in 6 months? Okay. If you're short every month, that shortness carries over, right? So if you're short $200 for the next month, you're starting over in the negative. So then that's going to add. And at the end of the month, if you keep that way going, you're going to be in the negative going down 6 months. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Just like the negative, if you have it if you end on a positive and you carry that over every month, that money is going to increase because you're already starting off ahead of the game. Okay. So, looking at that, um, uh, month by month, making sure that you can make it through the transition. When you do all of that in order, you know, I hope this works, turns to I know what to expect. Okay. So the micro learning track um, that we're going to talk about has a full session on exactly this process with tools and guided activities to help you work through your own numbers. Okay. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, Being financially ready, financial readiness, it doesn't have to be a business degree or you don't have to have a big savings account. What it does require is knowing your numbers before you make the move. Okay. So start simple. Write down what you spend today, then figure out what changes when you add an infant. Okay. So if you're spending this much on food, and then you have to think about how that's going to change on feeding that child. If and you're not thinking of just formula because parents will provide that sometimes, right? But you're thinking about um foods that are going to be easier for younger children, right? Just different activities, different materials. Older kids don't need the fat crayons. Well, the smaller children do, you know, things like that. All of those, even the tools, the cribs that you're going to have, all of the equipment, everything, it takes some thought. Okay. So what you're spending today, how is it going to look if you were to add an infant? From there, look at what the market charges and ask honestly whether that your rate will cover your actual costs. Okay. The comparison alone is going to tell you a lot. If you can pull up your last few months of income and expenses and see a clear, stable picture, then you're already ahead of where most providers start. Okay. But if that number feels a little murky, it's not, it's a little questionable, that it doesn't mean that you stop there. It just means that you need some help. And so, there's several opportunities and several ways that you can do that. Okay. One is to, this is not my direct pitch for coaching, but it is. Okay. So if you need one-on-one coaching, you need some help, I'm your person. I'm just kidding. You can ask for any coach, and anybody, one of us is good to help you, but this is my thing, right? Okay, I do love to do this stuff. But there's a lot of coaches that can help you, okay? Not just taking the tracks. Okay, so I want to put that out there because these unique questions to your business can be handled in one-on-one coaching. Okay? Now, let's talk about the operational part of this because there's going to be an operational shift that's very real. Okay? It's worth being open and clear-eyed about it, okay? With older children, you can run a group schedule, right? Circle time, outdoor play, lunch, so on, and you have your schedule, right? Infants and toddlers don't work that way, right? Every child has their own feeding schedule, their own nap times, their own cues. It's great, it's beautiful, but it's also demanding. You're feeding one, lovely, and you finally put that one down, and wow, another one starts crying, so you've got to go over there, right? So yeah, the babies are great. I love their smell so good. I love holding them, newborn stuff like that. But then, it's a feeding every few hours, all of that. So consider that. Families of very young children also expect more communication, right? They want to know how their babies are, especially if it's a first time mom, right? Some of you are moms, first time babies. I get it. I personally don't have any biological children. Um, but I've spent my whole career learning how to take care of everyone else's babies. So I get it, having the infants where the mom is just like, super paranoid. And then I had sisters that were super paranoid. To this day, they don't let me go with their kids, even though I'm an educator. They still, oh, you don't know what it's like. But we know this, right? So they're gonna want that extra communication. And that communication piece is not extra. It's gonna be a part of what they're paying for. Okay, so you have to consider that when you take on this age group. For solo providers, there's no backup in the room, right? You don't have a team of teachers to help you. It's you. So all of that matters and all of it needs to be planned for. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you just need to be prepared. Okay? All right. For every operational challenge that we just talked about, there's a concrete solution. And once you figure that out, this is going to be your roadmap. So your family handbook is going to be the place to start. It sets expectations before problems come up, and then it protects both you and the families. So you want to make sure it's updated before you even enroll your first infant. You don't want to do it after. Yes, there's always going to be some tweakings because that always happens. Okay. But I am very much a what if kind of person. So if you have an imaginative mind, think of all the things of what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if and don't be crazy, like don't worry about being crazy about it. Think off the rails stuff that would probably show up in a movie, okay? Because that can happen. It can happen. So you want to make sure you're covered. Think outside the box, okay? Um, uh, Technology can also take some of the repetitive administrative tasks off your plate automatically. And some providers find that adding a capable assistant gives them even more room to grow. So you want to be honest with yourself about how many children you can sustainably serve, because that right enrollment number for you and your model is just one that lets you do it well. You're going to do it without running yourself into the ground. Okay. And speaking of that, burnout is not just a personal risk, it is a business risk. Okay. So planning for it from the start, though realistic enrollment limits are sustainable routines, is part of running a reasonable program. You just want to be prepared, okay? Planning for it helps kind of deal with all of those things. Okay, so your handbook is the best place to start because it's the document that sets the expectations with families before problems come up, okay? So read it fresh with infant families in mind, okay? So if you have your handbook already, and going through each section, take some time, a little bit at a time, and go through it, and how would you modify that section to focus on or to meet an infant family's needs. Okay, the next thing you want to do is walk your space. You don't need a perfect setup on day one, but you might ask yourself, what needs to change? If I bring infants or toddlers into this area, what do I need to do to make it conducive to caring for infants and toddlers? Okay. If you're not sure, again, connect with your local licensing rep because they can give you all of the things that they might come in to do an inspection. And don't see it as a scary thing. Use it as a tool, like they're preparing you for what you need to do. Okay, I know when licensing visits it can be scary, but instead think of it as an opportunity to fix something, to prepare you. Okay, technology is one of the most practical tools available to you, and a good child care management system, a good app, can help you with billing, with your attendance, and even your daily communications. Especially if you have, to communicate with families about feedings and stuff like that. CCMSs can help you kind of set some systems in place. That's another thing. I am a big systems kind of person, right? So once you get, this is how it works and you stick with it, it's a lot easier, right? Because you know that even routines with kids, right? If you follow the same routine with children, it just works better. It's across the board. It's a good thing. Okay. And if one big question is sitting in the back of your mind right now, write it down. Okay. That question is your agenda for your next coaching conversation. Okay. Always keep that in mind. All right. So now let's talk about how marketing reality that surprises a lot of providers, and that's probably you don't need a big outreach campaign to fill your infant slots because we know the demand is there. What you need to be, what you need is to be trusted. Okay, so your reputation is already being built, whether you're actively managing it or not, and the families you're already serving are your most powerful asset. A recommendation from someone they trust carries more weight than a flyer or a social media post. And that's one of the things we talk about in our sales and marketing programs or our micro learning tracks is how that inner circle of a bullseye target, if you've ever taken some sales and marketing with us, we talk about that inner ring, that inner circle. It's your people that you have currently enrolled that are going to get you the the best opportunity to get more enrollments because they know you. Okay. So once you start filling those slots, how intentional you are about your enrollment mix, which ages, how many children, when transitions happen, that's going to determine whether your business feels stable or feels like you're constantly scrabbling to backfill. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're looking at trying to market your program. So you're already doing it. You already have the capabilities with the families that are enrolled. All right, you don't need to run ads or build a social media following to fill your infant slots. The most effective thing you can do is build real relationships with the people, the families that already trust you. The people who are most likely to send you an infant family are the people those families already trust. Their pediatrician, their lactation consultant, the community organization that connects them to resources before the baby arrived. So those are relationships that are worth building intentionally, and they can pay off over time. So on the enrollment side, the shift is from reactive to proactive. Okay. Instead of filling vacancies as they happen, now you're thinking ahead about what your program needs to look like 6 months from now. Which ages, how many children, and which transitions are likely to happen. Okay. That level of intentionality is what separates programs that feel stable from programs that feel like they're always scrambling. Okay. There's just like a calm in the chaos, right? We don't want families to see us as a chaotic program. Okay, filling infant slots is not about running a campaign, it's about relationships and visibility. And you can start building both today. So your current families are your warmest audience. A personal referral from someone who already trusts you, again, it carries more weight than any advertisement. So start there. From there, put yourself in front of the people that new and expecting families already rely on. Especially if you know that it's a growing family, right? If mom just had her first baby, she's bringing you a 2-year-old, but you know that they would probably be expecting more, right? So those are the families you really want them to bring their children as the family grows. You can also consider a pediatric office or birthing center that knows your name and can give a referral that keeps giving over time. So make those connections. Make sure your families who are searching online can actually find you by keeping your Texas Child Availability Portal listing current. And then you want to start thinking ahead. Providers who stay stable aren't just filling vacancies as they happen, they're thinking 1 or 2 enrollments ahead so transitions don't catch them off guard. Okay? Keep that in mind. All of those things, your Google business page, that's another one. Okay? All right. I want to share a scenario that reflects what we see regularly when providers take a prepared, intentional approach to this. A solo family childcare provider had been serving preschool age children for several years. She was curious about adding infant care, but wasn't sure the numbers would work. And so she was worried about burning out without anyone to back her up. So she went through the process of actually calculating her cost. She set a rate that covered them, updated her handbook before she enrolled anyone, and started with one infant. Okay. Within a year, that family had referred 2 more. She now runs a full mixed age program with a wait list. She didn't do it all at once. Okay. That's the key. She planned, she started small and built from there. That is the model that we're talking about. Okay. Give it a test run. You may get your first enrollment and decide, you know what, this is not what I'm built for. This is not something I want to do. No harm, no foul. You just once that baby ages out, you're good, right? Or grows up, even better. You decide you're not going to take any more after that. And you have to think about these things because in childcare centers, especially like if a teacher's trying to get her credential, how is it broken up? You know, a child development associate's credential, you have infant and toddler, and you have preschool, right? And I know that when I would teach those classes, um, I did a substitute program that they had to make a decision. Do you want to work with infants and toddlers, or do you want to work with preschool children? And we gave them an opportunity to try both. And some came back and said, you know what, Melinda, infant and toddlers are not for me. You know, I had to change poopy diapers, and that's not me. But other people would come back and say, you know what? This is my fave. They're the best. And that's what they chose to do. So just like that, you also have to make a decision. The best thing here is that it's your business. You can decide for yourself what you want to do. Okay? Nobody can tell you otherwise. And you have to do what you feel comfortable doing. Okay? All right. Now let's look at before getting started. Okay, I want to give you a simple self-assessment framework. Okay, these three questions are not meant to stop you. Okay, they're meant to help you go in with your eyes open. If your business financially you want to ask yourself, is your business financially ready for this change, or is there a stabilization work to do first? Okay, so you want to kind of look at the books, kind of see what you've got, okay? Do you understand the operational impact? Okay? Cost, capacity, policies, okay? Do you know them well enough to make a confident decision? All right? Do you have a plan for sustaining your business through the transition period, not just after, okay? So if you can answer yes to all three of those questions, then you may be ready to move quickly. If one of them surfaces a gap, that gap is your starting point. Okay. You're like, I don't know about what policies would I put. Then you're not ready. Work on those policies and then move forward. Okay. And so again, we're going to talk about a micro learning track that's designed to help you close those gaps. All right, so HHSC, the Child Care Regulation, is the agency that oversees your permit and can answer questions about what the requirements are to serve infants and toddlers in your specific program. Okay, they're the ones that are going to give you the specifics. Okay, so their website has a range of resources for family child care homes, and the regional offices are available to help providers understand what those requirements are. So if you have questions about your permit or what adding this age group means for your permit, reach out directly to CCR because that's going to be a great place to start. And then we do have a link that my colleague Vanessa is going to put in the chat for you all to look at. Okay.
It's already in the.
Awesome. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I don't have the chat open, so thank you. No, I just did. Okay. So that one's there for those specific requirements. We can't help you with those, but we can help you with the other stuff once you figure it out. Okay. All right. And then what we've discovered today, is an introduction. It's a real look at the opportunity and the landscape. So if you want to go deeper, then Texas FCCN is going to be offering a full microlearning track dedicated entirely to adding infant and toddler care. So it's just like every other microlearning track. It's going to offer 4 sessions. Of course, it's free, and it's built specifically for providers like you that are interested in adding infant and toddler childcare. Okay, maybe you do have some infant and toddler cares, but you're still like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, or what else can I learn? By all means, sign up, see what else you can find, right? So by the time you finish, you won't just understand the topic, you'll actually have worked through the numbers for your business. Also, it'll help you update your thinking on operations and policies, and that will also help you build a plan that you can actually act on. Okay, so let me give you a quick preview of what we're covering. Let me see. Here's what the sessions look like at a glance. Session 1 is going to help you assess whether this move is right for you, for your business right now. It's honest, it's practical, and it helps you avoid making a leap without looking. Okay. Session 2 goes deep into the financial side. Um, it covers your costs, your rates, budgeting, and cash flow. My favorite. Okay. And this is where a lot of providers say, I wish I'd had this before I started. Okay. So going back, looking at that session, that, the track might be helpful to you. And then session 3 shifts to the operations part, which is going to be your handbook, your technology, and your capacity. Okay. And how those work and how those can work for you. And then session 4 is going to close the loop on the marketing and enrollment planning. Okay, just like every other micro learning track, each session builds on the last. So you're not just collecting information, you're building that plan that we mentioned before. Okay. So that registration link is also there in the chat. Okay. All right. And so then that is where we are going to open all of this up to questions. Does anybody have any questions, or did we have any questions um in the channel? Any questions?
Hi, I do have a question. Not a question, but I think with infants, it is more. I'm nervous because I hear about incidents with SIDS and just things
Mhm.
happening since I've been doing my research and stuff, and that really makes me nervous. Like I know when my students are eating, I sit on a side of the table. We eat lunch with them, and so I can see all their faces. And if I have help, I make them sit on the opposite side. But with infants, things happen, so I am a little weary and nervous, for some, you just don't know. So, what is your take on that? Do any um, different practices? And I have kids of my own, but I just, you hear about things happening with infants. So that was my concern. Not saying that the provider did something, but just things happening to babies is my concern.
Yeah, it can happen, and that's one of the that's just it doesn't matter if it's a family childcare, a childcare center, or even your own children. That's something that happens with infants. There's no rhyme or reason for it happening. Nobody knows why it happens, but there are safety protocols in place. And so when you go to your licensing rep, they're going to tell you what protocols need to be in place. For instance, having been in the field for more than 30 years myself, knowing that, there's putting their babies back to sleep, or on their backs to sleep, right? And so that's just a campaign that reduced SIDS 50% by doing that. Okay. So I know,
Yeah.
in culturally, in my culture, it was like, oh, babies, we always put babies on their tummies, to sleep. When you're dealing with your own children, that's a risk you can take. But when you're working with other people's children, you want to follow the guidelines and what they say, right? So when you do look in your policies and procedures and you do look at the requirements for licensing, it will tell you exactly what the state requires to cover you in those instances, because SIDS is one that you just cannot prepare for. It happens, it happens. It's not anyone's fault when it is actually SIDS. But if you're not following your policies and procedures that you've set, or the ones that are set, the standards that are set, that's where you get into a liability issue, right? But there are standards already there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank
So
you.
yeah, you can be prepared for those with that, definitely. And that's a good one to consider. Any other questions? Let me see in the chat here. And Cynthia shared there is training for that through Texas A&M. Thank you for that. What is the website for childcare, the Texas Childcare Ability Portal? I don't have that link, or did we have that link, Vanessa? I don't see it. But that one would come from your licensing rep or the Texas workforce.
Yeah, I don't see
Um,
it.
yeah. I think somebody put it in there. Thank you. And then it says, I have in my handbook that I don't administer medication, and parents must do vaccines on Fridays and observe their child over the weekend. Sounds like a sound policy as long as you put it in writing, and the parents, it's going to be in your contract and the parents sign off on that. If that's what you do, that's fine, because I actually had that happen to me as a child care director, where mom took her child to the doctor appointment in the morning before school, brought her in after the appointment like normal, and baby was going, well, not baby, she was 3, but went through her day, went down for nap time, woke up with her face swollen, and she was having an allergic reaction to the penicillin, her vaccine or whatever she got. So that happens, right? So you just follow procedures, protocols, and you know what? That meant that there were going to be some changes in policies and procedures. Um, you want that's a good example of what to prepare for. You have somebody that says, you know what, this is what I do. This is where being in the network is really great because then you talk amongst each other and say, this happened to me, and that's going to be an opportunity to be proactive. I heard this story that this happened, and it's not so much that, oh man, this is bad stuff. No, these are things that you can prepare for. Especially I always joke about it, but in our licensing standards, and here in Texas, there's a policy. I don't know if somebody's seen it, but it's like you can't bring a wild animal to school or something like that. It's really crazy. I'm like, who's going to bring a wild animal to school, right? If it's in that minimum standards, it happened somewhere. Okay. Somebody thought of that and did it. And so they had to create a policy for it. So go to your minimum standards, look up the requirements, and just totally prepare yourself. There's nothing the standards are accessible to everybody. You can go in there, read them a million times, break it down, do it in chunks. Don't do it all at once. But you can do that to prepare yourself for that transition. Okay, it's definitely an opportunity to do that. Um, any other questions? Let me see if there's anything else.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question.
Absolutely.
Yes, so taking care of infants and toddlers is a little more expensive. Do you guys provide any type of grant or financial assistance when we take on infants and toddlers?
At this time, we don't, but it doesn't mean that shared services won't, and there might be something else out there. So definitely get involved with your shared services through the Workforce Commission and different programs. We particularly don't, but I think a lot of times what we want to do is prepare you to do that, and be sustainable without having to use the funding all the time because the funding is going to run out, right? We know it's not always there. So then how do people sustain themselves? How do they sustain their businesses? So this is what we want to do. We want to help you to where you know what the right price is, what the cost of care for those infants are. And that way, you have everything you need to where you will be sustainable and you won't have to be dependent on any extra funding. Sometimes it is harder to get it kick off and get it started, but that's definitely um, some ways that we can do that. Cynthia Barnes shared child nutrition reimbursement versus you for money you spend on food. That is definitely true. There's a way to utilize your reimbursement to help with your revenue streams. Um, Cynthia gave a really good example, and I can share with you. I've worked individually one-on-one coaching with some providers that we worked on how to, when she does her food program, what she was doing was a lot of random purchasing, like just purchasing as she needed to. And when we started meal prepping, kind of like we do for ourselves, but she got on a menu. She planned her meals she had a rotating menu every few weeks. I'm trying to see, maybe she's here. I don't know if she's here. I don't know if I see that provider. I don't think she's here. She usually shows up. Um, no, I don't see her. But I will tell you this, but she managed to save in 1 month by meal prepping and really watching her menus and stuff and couponing and finding, not going with the name brand and all that stuff that we talk about. She managed to save $323 in 1 month. Okay. And this is for real because we worked on her budget and she was really excited to tell me when I said, okay, how did it work? And she was like, I saved $323, I can tell you. So you can do that. Okay. And that money that she saved, that goes right back into the business. You can put it into your cash reserves, and then that can help you to fund that other opportunity, right? So there's definitely some ways to do it. Okay. Cynthia's also sharing that she has a 3 month rotating menu. There you go. And you buy your stuff in bulk, right? She makes almost everything from scratch. Perfect. You know, that is a little bit of extra effort with cooking. That would not be me. That's why I give you all props for doing this because that is not me. Okay, I don't even cook for my dog, so he gets special foods. So Sam's, everybody's saying Sam's, right? So there's some definite opportunity, right? And really, at the bottom line is that prepare, look and create your roadmap to and create that really strong foundation before you take it on. Okay, and so that is what we definitely want to provide. Kitchen equipment helps. Yep. So having everything you need, again, going into your standards. Okay. Talking to your licensing rep. What is exactly the items you need to make sure that you are handling that age group? Okay. Remember, baby bottle warmers, diapers, bins, all that stuff, safety, all that stuff. So those are the things you want to consider. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see.
I have
Okay.
a quick question.
Mhm.
I do have toddlers and infants. See that Jennifer has on her in her handbook, which I think is a great idea, that she does
Mhm.
not administer medication. I don't either, but I had a infant that had a circumcision. So there's some ointment that's like an antibiotic that I apply on top of like I guess regular Vaseline. So I wanted
Mhm.
to know if she applies. Does she consider antibiotic medication?
So normally I have a parent do that before they're dropped off and then they can do it as soon as they pick up the kid. I don't like to be responsible for that. If it's like a 12-hour thing or a 6-hour thing, I try and have the parent do that. If it's absolutely necessary with every diaper change, I will, but they have to sign a form that I am not liable if that becomes infected because I was not trained by the doctor on how to put that on. I was just asked to do it. So I try and remove the liability from me because I am not trained. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to help. And I try and make sure that the parent can do it if possible.
Oh yeah. So my parents, so she said it needs to be done every diaper change. And yeah, it needs to be done every diaper change. And he is here for maybe like 11, no, 10 hours. So yeah, but I like what you have on here, especially for the vaccines as well, that you advise them to get their vaccine on Friday. So that means that they don't come into school on Friday and then they're monitored over the weekend. So on Monday, everything should be good. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, ma'am. Parents know best, and I feel like it's safer for them to be at home with their mom if they do spike a fever, if they get a rash, because maybe this has happened before and mom knows how to take care of it. For us, we may not understand how serious it could be or how unserious it could be. So I just much rather that be in the parents' hands.
And then we watch so many kids at one time. Sometimes things can be overlooked as far as like a small symptom that we may have not seen, or it's just best for them to be home too. So I did keep kids. I sent the message out and said, hey, I want, the child needs to be monitored at home. And then she responded saying that the doctor said that he was fine to be at school, and then he also has a return back to school note. So I guess you just alleviate all that by just putting it in your policy, basically. Because I didn't have that in my
I do that.
policy. It just evolved, you know.
I do that, and then I also have things in my handbook, and I can drop it in the chat. But in my handbook, it also has things like for hand, foot, and mouth. I do not honor doctor's notes. If a child comes with an open sore, they cannot come into our classroom. So I specifically say I do not honor doctor's notes. If there are open sores or there's a fever within the past 24 hours, they cannot come to care. Because I've had parents say, hey, I have a doctor's note, they're fine, and they're oozing.
Right.
And I can't take care of that in the classroom.
Yep.
This is
And
something
this,
with me over here
Yeah, you
because
can
I
drop
got
that, Jennifer. Go. Sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, no, no. I was
this
just saying, I'm done. I was just gonna say, if you can drop that, Jennifer, that'll be nice because I like what you have. And then I have one more I just had a death in the family yesterday. Literally
Sorry to
all
hear
this
that.
just happened, so I'm taking Thursday and Friday off. What do you guys have? I don't have a grievance in my policy because I have like the 10 days PTO off. My question is, how do you guys handle that? Do you guys have a grievance and the PTO, or do you just have a grievance in general without PTO? Just wanted to ask that, and that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
No, in my policy, and hello everybody. In my policies, I do have personal days off, and that's a personal emergency days off. So I don't think you have to reimburse anybody for those 2 days. I don't know how you charge, but I do not reimburse those 2 days. And you did tell them in advance that you have to leave, so you might want to be closed for a week or something. How depends how long it's going to take for the funeral. So normally, if the funeral is next week, I prefer to work until those week that they get close to go to the funeral. But if the funeral is tomorrow or 3 days later, I'll go ahead and take the day off right away and leave. And because you already announced the parents emergency happens, so that's an emergency, you know.
Um, that thank you everyone. That is a lot of great information. And it boils down to what everybody's kind of saying, again, is your policies and procedures. Making very clear of what you will expect. And again, thinking outside of, so you're hearing all of these situations that can arise, right? And so then think of those things and put those in your policy, even if the chances of those things happening may not happen, but it could. So you want to be prepared. It's always about being prepared. Miss Darcy, I do see your hand up. Do you have a question?
Well, I just have a comment too that in my parent handbook, I have 1 month vacation. I have 5 days um, professional development, and then I have 3 days if it's somebody, pass away, it's an emergency family thing. And then,
Mm-hmm.
those 3 days, and then if it's something else happen after that, I will give them reimburse after the 3 days for the somebody died. And then about the vaccination, I have do not bring your kid if you have a vaccination. And then if you're gonna make a doctor appointment, do not make it in the morning. It's in my parent handbook. Do not make it in the morning and bring your child. You can bring your child in the morning and make the appointment afternoon, so that way the child can be with you after, all the appointments and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So I don't want to have those things because sometimes they have fever and they're not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Darcy. That's all of this is very good information for each other. And I will say this is what the network is about. Okay, connecting with each other, getting examples. We do have also our coffee and conversation topics that happen every month. Here again, I'm gonna go ahead and share with you as we close out our additional coaching opportunities. Okay. Um, so if you do want some one-on-one coaching, we can also help you look those things over. And then again, join us for our next event, which is actually going to be if you need this information in Spanish or you know somebody that might need this information in Spanish, by all means, connect with us in for Thursday. And also, let me see if I can actually. I do want to pull up the actual events page because this is a resource um, that that I encourage all of you to on the website. If you ever coach with me or one of my sessions, you know that I'm going to take you to the
Just put it in the chat, Melinda.
okay, yeah, but the link, did you put the link in there as well?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so we do want you to visit the events page, look at what's coming up. There's so many different things, and especially those coffee and conversations where you guys can network with each other and get that information about all of the different policies that are helping you all. Okay, so definitely attend those and so that you can kind of get some help if you need it. And then we are here as well, always here. So let me see. I put my um slides away. But I do want to thank you all for attending today. Here again is our information for as we close out the session. Again, reach out to us if you have any more questions or you would like some one-on-one coaching. And look for make sure to sign up for the MLT, adding infant and toddler care to your program. Okay, I want to thank everybody for attending. And with that, I will give everybody their time back for the